The Italian Wine Podcast is the community-driven platform for Italian wine geeks around the world. Support the show by donating at ItalianWinepodcast.com. Donate €5 or more and we'll send you a copy of our latest book, My Italian Grape Geek Journal, absolutely free. To get your free copy of My Italian Grape Geek Journal, click Support Us at ItalianWinepodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. Grazie mille.
Welcome to Masterclass US Market with me, Juliana Colangelo. This show has been designed to demystify the US market for Italian wineries through interviews with experts in sales and distribution, social media, communications, and so much more. We will quiz each of our esteemed guests at the end of each episode to solidify the lessons that we've learned. So sharpen your pencils, get out your notebooks, and join us each week to learn more about the US market. Hello, welcome to Masterclass US Wine Market. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Erin Kirschenmann to the Italian Wine Podcast. Erin is the managing editor for Wine Business Monthly, the leading print publication for the wine industry, and she's based in Northern California. Welcome to the show, Erin. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Of course. So before we dive into today's discussion about wine media, tell us a little bit more about how you came into the position you hold today as the managing editor for Wine Business Monthly.
Yeah, I came into it with a little bit of dumb luck. I've always been that person who knew what they wanted to do with their life, and that was journalism. So I've been studying it for a very long time. And when I graduated from college, I knew that there wasn't really too much of a stable future in certain types of publications, but the B2B business-to-business world in trade publications was sound and would always be sound. So I left college. I started writing for an insurance trade publication, which was enlightening, but also quite soul-sucking in a way.
Wow. Sounds a little dry, to be honest.
It's so dry.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. Nobody really decided to tell you anything about what they were doing.
Yeah.
So I hopped on Craigslist. And I saw a position for the assistant editor for Wine Business Monthly. And at the time I said, okay, well, I do want to be the editor of a publication one day. This is a good career move. And it's wine. There's red wine and white wine, and I like both. And that was pretty much the extent of my wine knowledge. 12 years later, I am still with Wine Business Monthly, and I moved from assistant to senior and now to managing editor in that time.
Amazing. So you had a pretty, direct career path in terms of knowing exactly what you wanted to do and finding the passion in wine. But it sounds like the passion for writing came before the passion for wine. Am I right?
Absolutely. I've always wanted to be in journalism, in publications. The wine bit was a little bit of a surprise. I think my family is still quite floored at how much I care about this industry.
I bet. Well, I think that's great platform for today's conversation, Erin, because we really want to dive into what makes for a true great story, not just a wine story, but a story. So your background and passion for journalism, I think, is going to be really valuable for our listeners. And, the three key takeaways for today's episode are, number one, what makes a compelling wine business story? First and foremost. Number two, what key facts, pieces of information do you need as an editor to write a compelling story? I.e., what information should wineries, wine representatives make sure they have on hand and always have prepared for journalists? And finally, what are some of the topics that are trending right now in wine industry news and at Wine Business Monthly? So for starters, I like to start with definitions. What for you makes a truly compelling wine story?
So a truly compelling wine story tends to go above and beyond wine. In a general consumer publication, wine is the heart, but there's something else that's the soul, right? I read this great piece by Hannah Bakshi the other day talking about how Lebanese winemakers are still pushing through and pursuing winemaking because it's part of their culture, it's part of their heritage, right? Wine is at the cornerstone of that, but really what brought me into the story is understanding that human aspect. In the business world, it's not too dissimilar, but instead of it being that human, heart, passionate aspect, we're bringing the business side into it. How did a bank come through foreclosure, for example, and bootstrap it or get investment in order to make their way back so that they can continue to pursue it? How did a father work with his 4 children who had very different interests, but all wanted to be part of the business to make sure that the next generation could come through. It's really all about successes and failures, right? Understanding that sometimes we succeed, here's how we did it. Sometimes we fail, here's how we came back from it. So that's sort of like the human side of business.
Right. So really going, like you said, beyond what's in the bottle and the wine to really telling the greater picture of how that wine came to even be in the bottle, right? From the very beginnings.
Exactly. And I mean, from our business standpoint, we do care about the wine in the bottle in some way, right? We're looking at low and no alcohol and how that plays a part in the broader picture. How did they make that wine? But all of it revolves around that success and failure. So, like a good example, some of the solutions to problems, climate change being a really good example. We all know it's getting warmer. We're having more extreme weather events. I love to see grape growers and winemakers who are running trials to find the different grape or a different clone that is a little bit more drought resistant or a little bit more frost resistant, right? And understanding how that all came to be. For us, business is all about that process, right?
Italian Wine Podcast, part of the Mama Jumbo Shrimp family.
And, in terms of what you need as an editor to actually write a compelling story, what are some of the key pieces of information, facts, materials that you as an editor are looking for?
Absolutely, yes. So I'd love to say we want everything and have that actually be possible. But from a business perspective, we need particularly the winery to be open and honest. Hiding things never works well. If, I ask you, why didn't this one work? Why didn't this clone work? Don't just brush past it. Work with us, right? In order for our readers to feel like they've learned something, they need to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. We definitely need data, whether that's, sales, weather patterns, anything quantitative to help back up the qualitative will make for a truly engaging and useful story. In the B2B world, our readers need that. We are a resource for them to learn. And that goes for any business to business publication. They need to walk away knowing something new. And if they can't necessarily walk away with something new, they're walking away with some inspiration to move forward. I love trend pieces that aren't worry with me. Oh my God, sales are slowing. What do we do? If you can tell me about, yes, sales are slowing, but like Prosecco is doing so well. Okay, why is that happening? That can provide some inspiration for other wineries to say, okay, well, this region had one distinct style that they were known for. And now they've broadened that out. They've pushed quality. They're pushing price a little bit. That's an idea. And maybe they can bring some of those lessons back. Maybe they can now share Prosecco with their guests or their drinkers, right? If it's a sommelier reading that. So I need to be able to deliver some sort of inspiration to them. If not, hard fact, this is the latest research. This is the latest news.
Right. And when it comes to data, are you looking for always third-party data, or can first-party record keeping or data points also be applicable?
Either is great. I mean, it really depends on the story. If you're writing or talking about sustainability measures in your vineyard and you're talking about moving away from no-till farming, there are certain things that you measure when you do that to see if it's, one, a good return on your investment, but more importantly, if it actually is good for your soil health. And so having that kind of information really backs up the feel good, we're doing things that are better for the environment angle. Yeah. And of course, third-party data is great. Let me just preface that. And most publications have access to that. What we don't have access to are some of the things that you're doing as a winery.
Okay, got it. That's a good distinction, about giving also, not giving a writer, an editor, something they can find on their own, but giving them access to information that's truly different and unique that they potentially couldn't find on their own.
Exactly. It sets you apart in their mind because you've been incredibly useful and open to them. When there's the opportunity for a story in the future, they will remember that and come back to you and say, oh, it was a pleasure working with XYZ. Let me do it again.
Right. Absolutely. So that's great. That's really, I think, important for listeners to understand too, that when you work with a journalist or an editor or publication and are giving them the sources and the information they need, they're more likely to come back to you in the future for other story opportunities. So let's take a step back. I mean, we talked about what makes a good story, what information you need. How do you like to receive ideas for stories, pitches for stories? Who do you want to hear from? And who do you want to speak to, through the wineries in order to write your stories?
When it comes to the original angle or pitch, I mean, I always love hearing from the winery owner, or especially for a smaller producer, but we don't mind hearing from the PR companies as well. We don't mind hearing from marketing. Who it's coming from doesn't really matter, so long as the pitch and the way in which you're pitching are up to speed. Most publications will have somewhere on their website pitch guidelines. And in general, those are meant for other writers, but it is so essential for wineries and producers, anybody looking to get coverage, to take a look at that as well. I spell out in ours exactly what I am and am not looking for. And I get so many pitches from wineries that are exactly what I write. Number one, bold in my do not pitch us this story section. And I just delete it and move on.
Interesting. So really follow the guidelines that are on the publication's website. And where typically on the website are those guidelines posted?
It really depends on the publication, but usually it's on About Us, Contact Us. It's also usually somewhere near their editorial calendar, which is another great place to look if you want to start engaging and reaching out to these publications. No matter whether it's B2B or B2C, we are required to put together a calendar as part of a media kit so that potential advertisers know what we're covering and when. At Wine Business Monthly, the things that we have on our editorial calendar are things like barrel coverage, tank coverage, closures, because those are the types of advertisers that we have. But for somebody who's potentially looking for coverage, say you just purchased this brand new barrel, nobody else in the world has it. Probably very hard to do, but maybe it's a new type of wood. Maybe you're experimenting with cherry or acacia wood. If you go to our editorial calendar and see that we have barrels covered for November, pitching us months ahead and saying, I saw you're covering barrels. I want to let you know about this new program. An editor is going to go, oh my goodness. Yes, this person is paying attention. This person is doing some research on us, and we're more likely to go reach out to you. So you can, where you find the editorial calendar, you'll often find some of those pitch guidelines.
Got it. So really show you've done your homework, you've done your research, you've taken the time to understand what the publication writes about, when it's writing its stories, and really following those opportunities. How about lead time? Like if your publication, I know it's different for print and digital. So let's talk about print first. If on your editorial calendar, it says that you're going to be covering the usage of oak in March, when do you want to see pitches for stories about oak for print?
I want to see them in October or November because I need to know about it for a while. Then I need to assign the story to the writer. I need to give them time to write it. Once that's done, I need time to edit it, then produce it. There are a lot of steps that go in behind the scenes. So as much lead time as you can give, the better.
Okay, got it. And how about for digital stories?
For digital, I mean, the lead time could be an hour, right? That's the beauty of digital publication, is if there's breaking news, we can put that up immediately. If you have an angle that's a bit more evergreen, meaning not time sensitive, not season sensitive, it could run a little bit longer. I have a story that I've had on hold for 3 months now because it's something that we're going to use to fill some space later on when we don't really have anything, but there's nothing groundbreaking in it per se. So it's kind of been sitting in the hopper, and that can happen.
Right. So if something's not super time sensitive, it might take a little bit longer to publish.
Exactly. So lead times for that could, it could be months. Who knows?
Right. Right. What's appropriate when it comes to follow up on these stories? Let's say, like you said, you're waiting on that story to publish. What's appropriate from the winery perspective of how often they should be following up with you about the publication of the story?
If you want to follow up on a pitch, I would say maybe once or twice is plenty. If you are following up on publication of a story that has already been assigned or could be written, I mean, keep hounding them, but don't do it frequently. Don't do it once a week, maybe, once every couple of weeks, because if the editor doesn't know, it's because they don't have a place for it just yet.
Right. So they're trying to figure out on their end, like where to place it.
Exactly. It's a little bit like playing Tetris with some of these stories.
Right.
Everything has to fit just right.
Totally. Totally. This is all super valuable information, Erin. I think this episode, I recommend our listeners flag this one for anything related to PR. Absolutely. So thank you for giving us such tangible, specific advice. So let's just talk now a little bit more about what you're writing about currently. What's really exciting for you? What's interesting to you at the moment?
There's a lot happening in the wine world and wine industry right now. I think the biggest threat to wine, and spirit's beer as well, the alcohol industry, is this anti-alcohol movement. This no alcohol is safe for you statement by the World Health Organization is really, that could be a game changer.
Yeah, it's scary. Really terrifying.
It's terrifying. And it's hard as a publication, to know, like, how do we cover this without worrying everybody? I mean, there has to be some level of call to action here. We need to get people scared so that they do something. So as an editor, don't want to make it seem like wine is dead, because it's certainly not. There are success stories out there.
Right. But kind of striking that balance of covering the topic thoroughly and sharing the facts without you said earlier, you don't want just doom and gloom, but there's also reality of what's happening in the world, and striking that balance, I imagine, could sometimes be challenging, especially with a story like this.
Yeah, exactly. Along those lines, what I do love covering and hearing is expansion in a time of slowing sales, right? We do see sales of most wines starting to decrease. It's not just plateauing, it is decreasing now, but there are players out there that are doing well. We love hearing that type of story.
What's working, like you were talking about earlier with Prosecco, like what's happening here that is making Prosecco successful, and what can we learn from that?
Exactly. I love innovation, whether that's in sales or in a winemaking capacity, maybe even a marketing capacity. Something that's really big in the US right now is partnering with sports organizations, teams, put wine in fans' hands, which as an avid football and baseball fan, I am all for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen Dow, for example. They have a special lounge with the Milwaukee Bucks. Jackson Family Wines just partnered with the NBA to be their exclusive sponsor. Right? Those are so cool. And I don't see any reason why the American wineries will kill me here. I don't see why Italian producers couldn't do something similar.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, getting wine, meeting customers more where they're at, and the arenas, literally and metaphorically, that they're participating in, right? So no, those partnerships are definitely really exciting and good leading examples for the rest of the industry to look at. It, it doesn't have to be the NBA, because I imagine there's plenty of listeners thinking, well, I can never afford that type of partnership. But, you can start smaller scale. Look at pickleball, right? Maybe there's a local pickleball association. I mean, pickleball players seem like the prime demographic for drinking wine. And who doesn't want a glass of something refreshing after a long game?
Well, here's my biggest tip that nobody's really followed through on yet. The motorsport world. Car people are wine people. They want to dive into the nitty gritty of how something is made.
Oh, yeah.
They love driving through beautiful vineyard landscapes and hills. And I know this one specific road in Tuscany that if I could remember the name of it, I would fly out there and go rent a fantastic car. I would try to rent a Ferrari, but let's face it, I couldn't afford that, and just drive through. Formula One is immensely popular in the United States now, which I also love Formula One, so I'm okay with this, but maybe teaming up with some other producers to have a stand at one of the races.
Right.
Especially Formula One nuts. Oh my gosh, they would love more wine at these events.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that those are great examples and really good advice of those niches that you can tap into, and thinking about, like you said, the consumer behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone who's really into cars and has that more technical mind frame might have that aptitude to get into the more technical aspects of wine. So really matching to your product to what that opportunity might be.
Yeah, exactly. And there is so much opportunity out there, whether that's with consumers or with writers, with editors. You know, even our North American publications are interested in international wines. They want to know what's happening where. I'm always looking for more research. I don't care where in the world it's coming from, but if it has a good application for my readers, I'm all over it. So, there are a lot of very cool stories out there. We just need to find them.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Erin, as we wind down, we do our rapid fire quiz at the end of every episode. So if you can do your best to answer these questions in just a couple sentences, that'd be great. First question, what is your number one tip for mastering the U.S. wine market?
Can I give two?
Yes, I'll allow it. Go for it.
For mastering the U.S. wine market, I would say look outside the top cities. It's easy to go to New York, Los Angeles, Houston, our major number one markets. But in the Midwest, sales of wine or interest in wine is growing. As people move away from incredibly expensive cities like San Francisco and New York, they're bringing their wine knowledge and love with them. To master the U.S. wine media market, I would say check your websites.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice.
I want to find as much information as I can online. It helps me in my research. So even things like founding dates, logos for download, pictures of the estate for download, having all of that information at a writer or editor's hands is immensely helpful and will go a long way to building goodwill with them.
So make sure your website's up to date. That very, very good reminder. Absolutely. Okay. Two great tips. I'm glad I allowed you to, because those are both really valuable. So thank you. Question number 2, what is something you might have told your younger self about working in the wine industry?
You don't have to say yes to every invitation, even though it's a great way to network and build your wine knowledge. Remember to take care of yourself first.
Really good advice. Absolutely. Moderation. And finally, we all are traveling a lot in this industry. And what is one of your favorite travel hacks when you're on the road?
I like to pack clothing that is kind of throwaway, because I know I'm going to come back with bottles and I want to make room in my suitcase. So they either serve as padding or they're just left behind in a hotel room.
All right. Yeah, I'm with you there. I like also discarding things along the way to make room for new things, especially if you're in Europe. I don't know if you're like me, but I try to find some time to shop when I can.
My record for bringing back wine bottles is 11 in a carry-on sized bag.
11. Wow. That's pretty
No breakage.
Wow. I'm impressed. Well, Erin, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for joining me. How can our listeners follow along with you?
Yeah, they can send me an email, Erin, ERIN, @winebusiness.com. I'm always happy to connect. And you can follow me on Instagram at Erin A. Kirsch.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks again, Erin.
Thanks, Jules.
Thank you for joining me today. Stay tuned each week for new episodes of Masterclass US Wine Market with me, Juliana Colangelo. And remember, if you enjoyed today's show, hit the like and follow buttons wherever you get your podcasts.